We know Aaron Rodgers is a little bit closer to Social Security than some of the other quarterbacks who are currently in the NFL. What are your initial observations of Aaron Rodgers and how he's fitting in with the New York Jets?
Well, he looks to be fitting in just grand. I mean, look, he looks like he's supposedly rejuvenated, and seems like the younger guys have taken to him, and the coaching staff has taken to him, which is understandable. I mean, he has a skin on the wall, not skins, a skin on the wall. He's won a Super Bowl, and that has cachet. He's put up a ton of numbers. I can tell you this, being in Green Bay last week, seeing him talk about how he's rejuvenated with all the young guys, I don't think they took too kindly to that. Because he did have a couple of young wide receivers last year that he wasn't around to work with in the offseason. So, look, more power to him. I'm glad he's playing. It's fun to see him play. He's a great player. I enjoy watching him play. I've been a big proponent of his over his career. But, there's certain things that why weren't you rejuvenated a year ago when you had a bunch of young players around you then, too?
Oh, Pete, what is your overall thought looking forward for the Jets this season? We saw Rob Saleh chew out the offensive line. We know that's a concern. He has the young weapons. We know the AFC is packed. What is your ultimate thought on what the Jets season could and might look like?
JR, I think when you look at it, I think it's going to be one of those situations where he's right. If the offensive line doesn't get better, it's going to be a problem. I don't care if you have all the bells and whistles and you add Dalvin Cook and you have all those wide receivers and you have Aaron Rodgers. If you don't block, you're not winning. It's as simple as that. It's a block and tackle league. Now, having said that, you go up and down the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins have offensive line issues. The Buffalo Bills have some offensive line issues. New England has offensive line issues. So the entire division has offensive line issues, and I think that relates to a lot of teams around the league. So fix it or you're going to have problems. I mean, it's that simple. I don't care how good your defense is. I don't care how good your quarterback is. You got to be able to block up front.
Pete Prisco is here with us, taking the time. CBS Sports HQ, JR holding it down for Maggie and Perloff. Pete, when you look at some of the younger quarterbacks who are being indoctrinated into the league, whether it's Richardson, who will now be starting, or Stroud, or Young, what is your first observations now that we've seen them this past week?
Yeah, I don't think you can really get much of an evaluation off a first game. I'm a big believer, or in the preseason. I just don't buy it. I think what you see from the guys on the practice field, what you see from them when they get this work against other teams, I think that's much more important. Because look at it, Bryce Young was 4 of 7 for 21 yards the other day, and everybody's saying, "Oh, he looks so calm and cool." Well, what did he do? He threw for 21 yards and he checked the ball down. He made one good throw into the middle of the field. C.J. Stroud was getting brutalized right from the get-go. His line was terrible. He had some guys missing off that line, unfair to him. And then Richardson made some bonehead plays, made some really good plays. Was threw high on a couple times. Pittman caught one, and then one went over his head. So you go back and watch them, and I went back and watched them all on tape, and you sit there and you say, okay, there's stuff to like, but there's vanilla defenses. You're not sending a bunch of blitzes at them, so it's hard to evaluate the young quarterbacks in my book.
Who do you think is in line to at least have the best amount of success given the team that surrounds them?
I think it'll be Young. Look, he was the best quarterback in the draft in terms of as it relates to how you throw the football and how you have poise in the pocket and everything else. My concern with him was he's little, and really little. I mean, he's not just short, he's little. And can he hold up over the course of, the season, but also his career? And that was my concern with him. But from a pure playing quarterback standpoint, he will be the best because he can stand in there. He knows how to go through his progressions and his reads. It's just a matter of if they can protect him. And last week, his offensive line was bad last week against the Jets. And the Jets are good on the defensive line, but they were not good. So his protection has to be better as well.
Pete Prisco is here with us, CBS Sports Radio. Pete, talking about Bryce Young and the opportunity that exists with him for the Panthers, we know that the NFC South in a general sense is going through a transformation. The Falcons are hoping they have their quarterback with Ritter. Carr joining the Saints. We know Tampa Bay is in no man's land post Brady. What do you think the NFC South will look like? I had someone who called me last night and said, oh, my God, the Panthers are going to win it out. And I had to go, whoa, wait a minute. What are your thoughts?
I think it's wide open. I think any one of those teams can win it. Now, if I had to rank them, I think Tampa Bay is going to be better than people think because I think Baker's going to play better than people think. And I know there's a quarterback competition of sorts there, but I think when it ends, it'll be his job. They still have a lot of talent. What they did do is add some young speed to that talent, which they needed to do. I think it's Tampa, New Orleans, then Carolina, then Atlanta. Now, you look at that division, it changes every single year, and you trying to predict it is brutally hard to do. But I would say it's wide open. It wouldn't shock me to see any one of the four teams win it, and I don't think any one of the four teams is capable of doing much in the postseason. So I do think it's going to be a division that gets won late in the year and not by a team that's going to be dangerous in the postseason. But any one of them can win it.
Pete, your work with CBS Sports and CBS Sports HQ is taking you all over the country to training camps all over the place. What is something that has caught your attention, whether it be for a positive or negative reason that you don't feel has gotten a lot of attention that you've seen firsthand?
I'll give you a couple. In Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence is going to put up monster numbers, and I said this all summer. I said it on HQ a couple different times. I made the prediction. I told him this when I interviewed him last week. He's going to win the MVP, and people will say, well, how can you say that? And I'll say, here's why. Their schedule is so favorable, and I think they're going to end up with the number one seed in the conference. They're not going to be the best team in the conference, but they're going to end up with the number one seed. They play 4 games bare minimum against rookie quarterbacks in their own division. They play 1 against Bryce Young. They play Ritter, who hasn't played. They get the Chiefs come to Jacksonville in week 2, which is going to be 120 around there. I mean, it's brutally hot. And then they get Buffalo, who was supposed to be a road game at Buffalo, is now in London, where you're already having played a game against Atlanta the week before. They got to fly there. You'll be waiting for them. So I think the schedule plays out for them. And I think Trevor Lawrence, with Calvin Ridley coming to that team, is going to put up monster numbers and have a real legitimate chance. I think he's going to win the MVP. And then the other one was Jordan Love. Jordan Love is one of those guys that when he came out, I wasn't sure in my evaluation of him. I think the 3 years has done him well. I think he's got a little bit of an edge to him, more so than maybe people know in talking to him and talking to his teammates, even away from the camera. I think there's a little something underneath there that you want from your quarterback that most people might not know. And I think that he's going to be better than people give him credit for. And in fact, I think the Packers are going to win that division. I know everybody's on the Lions, but I think the Packers win that division.
Pete Prisco is here with us, CBS Sports Radio. Pete Prisco contributing to CBS Sports and CBS Sports HQ. As you talk about that NFC North, we saw what the Lions did at the end of the season to turn things around. There's a lot of expectations that even Fields is going to kind of put his stake into the ground. What is your overall thought on what's going on in Chicago?
Yeah, I think that division is moving in the right direction, in large part because I think Fields is coming. I think they're a year away. I think next year is going to be the Bears' year to push for the playoff spot in the division. Everybody's on the Lions, and they have a ton of young talent, and I like what Jared Goff did a year ago. Good offensive staff, Ben Johnson, good coach. So it's going to be a tough division. And, the Vikings won a lot of close games last year, so the concern with them is can they do it again? I would pick the Packers. Here's the thing about the Lions. The Lions are like the Jets in a lot of ways. They have to learn how to win. It's one thing to win games down the stretch of the season when they don't really matter. And not that they didn't matter because they got themselves back into the playoff mix, but there wasn't a win or you're out type of scenario, and there aren't playoff game wins. And young players have to learn how to do that. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for the Lions, but also B, the Jets. They have to learn how to do that.
No, well, Pete, we've seen a lot of NFL teams, man. They need a handbook. They need a whole lesson on how to consistently go out there and win. To start to wrap things up, someone who's the ultimate winner, and unfortunately not since Brady departed, he's at 500, is Bill Belichick. What do you put into the thoughts that he is now on the hot seat, especially with the public comments that have been from Robert Kraft and he about the budget and the spend, et cetera?
I think that's ridiculous to put him on the hot seat. He's still arguably the best coach in the NFL. And the problem with Bill Belichick over the last couple of years has been Bill Belichick, the general manager. Bill Belichick, the coach, should fire Bill Belichick, the general manager. And the decision he's made, it was a disaster last year hiring his offensive staff. And now he's made a change. He's actually got a good offensive coordinator in there, Bill O'Brien. But you go back to his drafts over recent years, there's where your problems come. It's not Belichick. Belichick, the coach, is still, probably number one in the league. But Belichick, the GM, and the guy who's been making the football decisions has crippled Belichick, the coach, and I think that's where the problems come from.
Pete Prisco, final question to wrap it up. We talked about teams that need to learn how to win. We know about the usual suspects who will be at the top of the division, likely both, or conferences, I should say. Whether it's the Chiefs, we know the Bills and the Ravens trying to get over the hump. We see the Niners trying to get back over that hump, figuring out Purdy and his availability now that he's been cleared. What are your thoughts on who's going to be the top of both conferences? And I know you mentioned Lawrence as an MVP winner. What surprises might we see?
Well, I'll give you a couple surprises. I think Washington's going to be better than people give them credit for. In that division, it's a tough division. I know the Eagles are king, but now the Eagles are the hunted. And going to the Super Bowl and losing is always tough to bounce back. They have the best team, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get back there. And I think Sam Howell is better than he's getting credit for, and they have a ton of talent on that team. They can rush the passer. Chase Young's going to have a good year. Coupled with the rest of those guys on that front, they add Forbes in the secondary. Jamin Davis is ready to take the next step, and the offensive line's improved with a lot of weapons. I think Washington's a team to keep an eye on. I think when you look in the AFC, I mentioned Jacksonville. I think they're definitely one. And then if Pickett's good in Pittsburgh, I mean, that division is loaded because I think Cleveland's going to be much better. So I think Cleveland and Pittsburgh are two teams that you have to watch. If their quarterbacks play anything close to what you think they can play like, both teams can push. And, boy, I'll tell you what, that's going to be a war in that division because the Bengals are good and the Ravens